My name is Roxanne Mans, and I'm 31 years old. I wish I could say I didn't see it coming, that there was some sudden twist, some unexpected cruelty that blindsided me that night. But the truth is, the signs had been there for years. I just kept convincing myself to read them differently. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, not directly from my parents, not even from my younger sister. It came as a forwarded email, subject line unchanged, message body untouched, my name nowhere in the greeting. Just logistics, date, time, address. 31st anniversary dinner. No, hope you can make it. No, we'd love to see you. Nothing that suggested I was actually wanted. Last year, they celebrated without me. Not because I was busy, not because there was a misunderstanding. They excluded me. Completely. I found out weeks later when I finally called my mom and asked why no one had mentioned the party. There was a long pause on the line, followed by a tired sigh, like I was the one inconveniencing her. We just wanted peace that night, she said. Peace. When I asked what that meant, she hesitated, then admitted they thought my presence would change the atmosphere, as if I carried tension with me wherever I went, as if I wasn't their daughter, but a variable they needed to remove for things to feel comfortable. That conversation stayed with me for months. I didn't come home for Thanksgiving. I skipped Christmas. No one called to ask why. No one checked in. Eventually, the silence started to feel intentional. So when the forwarded invitation showed up this year, I stared at it longer than I should have. I told myself maybe they'd softened. Maybe enough time had passed. Maybe this was their way of reaching out without having to say sorry. I wanted to believe that. I spent weeks preparing. I overthought everything. What to wear, what time to arrive, how much makeup was too much, whether showing up early would look eager or respectful. I rehearsed neutral smiles in the mirror, practiced saying happy anniversary without sounding like I was asking for something in return. I bought a gift that cost just under $1,000. Not flashy, thoughtful, custom. Things I knew they liked. Things that said, I pay attention. You matter to me. I told myself I wasn't buying affection. I was just trying to show goodwill, effort, proof that I still cared, even if I wasn't sure they did. I arrived an hour early and parked down the block like a guest who didn't want to impose. Sitting in the car, I watched the house from a distance. Lights on, curtains open. I could already hear faint music through the open windows. My hands rested on the steering wheel as I took slow breaths, reminding myself not to expect warmth, just civility, just basic courtesy. When I finally walked in, the house smelled like roasted vegetables and fresh bread. The dining room was half set, glasses lined neatly, chairs pulled out just enough to suggest company was coming. A few early guests drifted around with drinks, chatting quietly. I stepped into the kitchen. My mom stood at the counter slicing vegetables, focused, precise, like everything in her life. She didn't look up when I entered, didn't pause, didn't acknowledge me, standing there with a gift bag in my hands. You shouldn't have come, she said. Just like that. My dad stood a few feet away, wearing his old apron, leaning against the counter like he was watching a scene he found mildly entertaining. He chuckled. No one missed you last year either. They didn't even try to soften it. I felt something cold move through my chest. I set the gift bag gently on the counter and said, Happy anniversary. No thank you, no eye contact, no reaction at all. The silence stretched, thick and deliberate. I waited for something, anything, that might signal this wasn't exactly what it felt like. It didn't come. So I turned around and walked out. In the dining room, a few guests looked up, confused. Someone asked if I was leaving already. Another person just stared. My uncle glanced toward the kitchen, then back at me, his expression tightening, like he knew something wasn't right, but didn't want to be the one to ask. My parents stayed where they were. They didn't follow me, didn't explain, didn't even pretend to care. I stepped outside, the door closing softly behind me, and walked back to my car. Once inside, I didn't start the engine right away. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead, not crying, not shaking, just thinking. Not about how embarrassed I felt, because somehow that wasn't even the worst part. What hurt more was the clarity, the sudden, undeniable understanding of how much time, energy, and money I'd poured into people who saw me as optional at best. I unlocked my phone. The first thing I did was cancel the bouquet scheduled to arrive the next morning. White lilies and blue orchids in a crystal vase. Over $200. I'd imagined them smiling when it arrived. Imagined it softening something between us. The confirmation email came through almost immediately. Then I opened my banking app. The joint account they'd been using for nearly 2 years was still there. It was never meant to be permanent, just something to help them get through a rough patch. Somehow, it turned into a lifeline. $3,000 a month. Bills, groceries, streaming services, even my sister's rent in another city. They never once said thank you. With a few taps, I removed their access. A moment later, the confirmations rolled in. Florist cancellation confirmed. Joint account access removed. Then my phone started vibrating. The family group chat exploded. Why would you do this? Are you serious right now? You just embarrassed your parents in front of everyone. And then the one that made me laugh out loud in the quiet of my car. What kind of daughter does this on her parents' anniversary? I typed one sentence. You said you were better off without me. Now you get to prove it. I turned off my phone, started the car, and pulled away from the curb without looking back. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for choosing myself. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. I imagined a few days of silence, maybe a week. I pictured my parents stewing in their own outrage, licking their wounds the way they always did when something didn't go their way. I assumed they'd regroup, rewrite the story in their heads, and move on without me, just like they'd done so many times before. What I didn't expect was how fast everything would unravel. By the time I pulled into my driveway and stepped inside my apartment, my phone was already lighting up again. I hadn't turned it back on yet, but the screen glowed through my bag like a warning. When I finally checked it, there were 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, all from my parents. I didn't listen to them. I set my phone down on the coffee table, sank into the couch, and let the quiet settle around me. For once, no one was talking over me. No one was correcting my tone or telling me I was being dramatic. No one was rewriting my feelings in real time. I felt something unfamiliar loosen in my chest. Relief. It didn't last. At 8:13 p.m., a text came through from my younger sister, Katie. Hey, what happened tonight? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. Before I could respond, another message followed. My rent payment didn't go through. I thought Dad handled that. There it was. The lie collapsing in real time. Katie had no idea. She never knew the money had been coming from me. I'd made sure of that. A year and a half earlier, she'd called me sobbing after our mom told her she needed to figure things out on her own. I remembered sitting on my bed, listening to her apologize for needing help, hearing the panic in her voice. I stepped in quietly. I called her landlord, paid 3 months in advance. Then I linked her rent to the same joint account I'd given our parents access to. They let her believe it was them helping. They let her thank them. They let her feel safe because it made them look generous. Now that illusion was gone. I didn't answer Katie right away. I didn't know how to explain something I'd gone out of my way to hide. I didn't want her caught in the middle, but she already was. An hour later, my phone rang again. This time, I listened to the voicemail. It was my dad. His voice was different, lower, controlled, the way it got when he thought he was being reasonable. All right, he said. You've made your point, but this isn't just about us. You've hurt your sister. You've embarrassed the whole family. He paused, like he was waiting for me to agree. You think cutting us off is some kind of victory? Don't forget who gave you everything. That line stuck. Gave you everything. As if I hadn't been covering their bills for nearly 2 years. As if I hadn't stepped in every time they were short, pretending it was temporary. As if they hadn't taken credit for my help while treating me like an inconvenience. I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up to a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole and saw Katie standing there, her hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she'd driven all night. I opened the door and she walked in without waiting to be invited. I drove 3 hours, she said, not sitting down. No one would tell me anything. I nodded. I figured. You canceled the rent payment? Her voice cracked, just slightly. I cut off their access, I said carefully. Not you. She blinked. What do you mean? So I told her. All of it. I told her about the joint account, about the monthly transfers, about the bills, about the way I didn't want her to feel like she owed me anything. I told her I never corrected her thank you messages to Mom because I thought it spared her from guilt. She sank into the chair slowly, like her legs had finally given out. So all those times I thanked Mom, she whispered. I saw them, I said, in the group chat. Her face went pale. We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of it settling between us. Then I said, I'll still help you directly. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just done being the good daughter for people who only like me when I'm useful. She swallowed. They're going to come after you for this. I know, I said. And they did. The rest of the day built like a storm. My mom sent a long message about sacrifice and family loyalty. My dad sent one about betrayal and bloodlines. An aunt chimed in about respect. A cousin warned me not to burn bridges. Even Mark, my boyfriend, texted gently, "Please don't let this destroy you." That evening, Katie's phone rang. She answered it on speaker without realizing I was close enough to hear. My mom's voice came through, soft and careful. "We're sorry," she said. "Tell Roxanne to come by tomorrow. We just want to talk." Katie looked at me, unsure. I could see the part of her that still wanted to believe them, the part that hoped this was real. I nodded slowly. "Tell them I'll come," I said. Not because I believed the apology, but because I knew it wasn't going to be one. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was anxious, but because my mind was finally quiet enough to replay things clearly. Moments I'd brushed past before started lining up differently. Conversations that once felt confusing suddenly made sense. The pattern was there. I just hadn't wanted to name it. Katie called me early the next morning. "They said they wanted to fix things," she said, her voice cautious. "They sound calmer." "Let's see what that means to them," I replied. I drove over just after noon. The house looked the same from the outside, but it felt different the moment I pulled into the driveway. Too quiet. No guests. No music. The cars were gone, but the tension sat heavy in the air, like it had been waiting for me. Katie opened the door before I knocked. "They're in the living room," she said, twisting her fingers together. "They've been rehearsing." That alone told me everything. Inside, nothing had changed. Same couch, same coffee table, same carefully arranged family photos lining the walls, moments frozen in time, all smiles and milestones, none of them showing what came after the camera clicked. My parents sat side by side, stiff, like actors waiting for their cue. My dad smiled first, that controlled, practiced smile he used when he wanted to look reasonable. My mom stared at the coffee table, her hands folded, lips pressed tight. I sat down across from them and said nothing. Mom spoke first. "We've had time to think," she said slowly. "And maybe we didn't handle things as kindly as we should have." That was it. That was the apology. My dad picked up the thread immediately. "You've always been emotional, Roxanne," he said, as if this was a known fact everyone agreed on. "But there are better ways to handle conflict than blowing things up." I waited. He continued, "Walking out like that, cutting us off financially. You embarrassed us in front of everyone." There it was. Not we hurt you, not we pushed you away, just shame over how it looked. Mom shifted in her seat. "Canceling the account didn't just affect us," she said. "Katie needs that money for rent." At that moment, Katie stepped into the room. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. She sat beside Mom and glanced at me nervously. "I just don't want this to break everything," she said. "It already feels like it is." I turned to her gently. "You shouldn't be here for this." She frowned. "What?" "This isn't about you," I said. "I told you I'll take care of your rent. You don't need to carry their mess." She looked between us, confused, caught. I could see the pull, the years of conditioning telling her it was her job to smooth things over. My dad leaned forward. "You think you're above this family now?" I met his eyes. "No, I think I finally see it clearly." "You wouldn't be where you are without us," he snapped. "You owe us." I laughed softly. "I got here by doing the opposite of what you taught me." He stood up. "And don't push it." "You think money gives you power?" he continued. "We can make calls. Don't think your job's untouchable." I stood too. I've worked too hard to be threatened by two people who only feel powerful when someone depends on them. My mom flinched, then lashed out. "You think you're better than us?" "No," I said. "I think you raised a bank account, and now it's closed." The room went silent. Katie moved closer to me without realizing it. That was the first sign. The first moment I knew something had shifted for her. I left without slamming the door. Later that night, Katie texted me. "You were right. I didn't see it before." She told me she'd told our parents I'd be paying her rent directly, that she wasn't going to let them speak for her anymore, that she wasn't going back. That message stayed with me. It didn't end things. It escalated them. The next morning, I got a voicemail from my uncle calling me cruel, telling me to fix it before it's too late. I blocked his number. Then came the letter. No return address, just my name, typed neatly on the envelope. Inside was a 2-page letter from my dad, threatening legal action to recover family contributions. Everything I'd paid for, everything they'd benefited from. I sent it to a lawyer friend. He called me 10 minutes later. "It's absurd," he said. "Calculated. They're baiting you." I didn't respond. By that afternoon, Katie texted again. "They're telling people you stole from the family, that you drained their retirement. They never even had one." The story was changing fast. That evening, Katie showed up with our cousin Evan. He carried a folder thick with screenshots, emails, and notes. "I overheard your mom talking to guests after the party," he said. "She was twisting everything. I didn't know what to do with this, but I figured you might." That night, my phone buzzed again. A Facebook post. My mom, smiling, asking for prayers, talking about betrayal, about a daughter who had turned against family. The comments flooded in. Sympathy, support, outrage on her behalf. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I commented, "Should I post the receipts here or deliver them in person?" 5 minutes later, the post was gone. The family group chat went silent. Evan texted me, "Well, that shut them up." But I knew better. They'd lost the money. They hadn't lost the need for control. And now they knew I wasn't coming back. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It felt more like the pause you hear right before something drops. Too still. Too deliberate. I didn't trust it, and experience had taught me not to. 3 days passed without a word. No text, no voicemails, no cryptic messages through relatives. I almost started to believe they were finally done. Then, on Tuesday morning, I woke up to a voicemail from a blocked number. I recognized my mom's voice instantly. She was crying, or at least doing a convincing version of it. Her breaths hitched between words, her tone small and broken in a way I'd rarely heard growing up. "You win," she said. "We were wrong. Please, please come by tonight. Just talk. No blame. We just want to move on." It was the first time she had ever said we were wrong. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time after listening to it. Part of me wanted to believe her, the part that had survived childhood by hoping, by forgiving too quickly, by convincing myself that if I stayed calm enough, kind enough, quiet enough, things would get better. I called Katie. She didn't trust it either, but she offered to come with me. "If they try anything," she said, "I don't want you alone." The house looked the same when we arrived that evening. Same driveway, same porch light, same door that had watched me leave so many times without being stopped. Inside, the living room was arranged differently. No stiff posture this time. No rehearsed expressions. My mom stood up as soon as we walked in. My dad remained seated, watching carefully. "We're tired," my mom said. "We don't want this anymore." "Tired of the fighting?" I asked calmly. She hesitated. "Tired of the hate," she corrected. "Or tired of the money being gone." My dad cleared his throat. "We've been thinking about solutions." That was the word that mattered. Solutions. "What if," he said slowly, "we made you co-owner of the house?" I almost laughed. It wasn't an offer. It was a leash. A way to tie me back in with paperwork instead of guilt. Something they could point to later and say, "See? We included her. She owes us now." Katie stepped forward before I could respond. "That's not what she needs." My dad's jaw tightened. "If she says no, she just wants to keep playing the victim." There it was. The mask slipped clean off. "I'm not taking your house," I said evenly. "I'm not taking your guilt, your conditions, or your version of an apology." My mom's face hardened. "So that's it?" "That was your last chance," I replied. I turned to Katie. "I'll keep helping you, directly, but never through them again." She nodded, her voice steady. "I know." That was the moment she chose. A week later, Katie changed her mailing address. Another week after that, she moved into a smaller apartment closer to her job. I helped her carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs, both of us sweating and laughing in that exhausted way that comes from doing something hard but right. I started wiring her $900 a month. No middlemen, no stories, just support. One night, she sent me a voice message I listened to 3 times. "You're the only one I can trust," she said softly. "You never used me. You told the truth and you never stopped helping. You're my family." That broke something open in me. My parents tried a few more times. Emails, guilt-laced messages, even a fraud report that went nowhere. Nothing stuck. Eventually, they stopped. It's been 4 months since I last stepped into that house. The silence used to feel suspicious, like something was being planned behind it. Now it feels like freedom. I sleep better. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes. The joint account sits untouched, a relic from a life I don't live anymore. People still whisper. An old acquaintance messaged me once, saying my parents were telling people I'd vanished without warning, that I was unstable. I saved the screenshot and didn't respond. People like them don't stop rewriting the story, even when no one's listening. I'm planning a move out of state, far enough that accidental run-ins aren't possible. I haven't told anyone yet, not even Katie, but I will. Because the final step isn't just closing the door. It's walking far enough away that you can't hear the knocking anymore. This time I'm not looking back.